Sunday dinners at my parents' house were never enjoyable. They weren't really about catching up or sharing a meal together. They were about my brother, Adam, holding court while my parents praised every breath he took. My mother would cook the same meals she had been making for decades, and my father would sit at the head of the table silent as ever. My younger sister, Emily, would be there with her husband and kids, smiling but mostly keeping quiet. And then there was Adam, the golden child, the one who did everything right. At 40, Adam had a big house, a fast car, and a wife who barely spoke, as if silence was part of the job description. He had 2 sons who were as rowdy as they were, loud, always wrestling in the living room while my parents laughed and called them tough boys. And then, of course, there was me, the disappointment. I had been used to it for years, the subtle and not so subtle reminders that I wasn't living up to their expectations. My mother would sigh and say, "If only you were more like Adam." My father would grunt in agreement. But tonight was different. There was a strange tension in the air. My parents kept sneaking glances at me, their usual quiet disapproval replaced with something I couldn't quite name. Adam, on the other hand, looked nervous. I had no idea that tonight, everything was about to change. Growing up, I was never like Adam. He was athletic, popular, and charming. I was quiet, sickly, and always had my nose in a book. While he was out scoring touchdowns, I was inside trying not to have an asthma attack. My parents never saw asthma as a real illness. If I wheezed too much, my father would shake his head and say, "Toughen up, son." My mother would say I was being dramatic. At school, things weren't much better. I wasn't strong or outgoing, so I was the easy target for bullies. Adam? He was the guy everyone wanted to be. Even my teachers compared me to him. When I barely scraped by with a 2.5 GPA, my parents were mortified. College was supposed to be my second chance, but I dropped out in my second year. That was when they officially gave up on me. I could hear them whispering when they thought I wasn't listening. "I just don't know what we did wrong with him," my mother would say. So I left. I took a job at a local comic book and video game store, a place filled with people like me. Nerds, dreamers, people who weren't afraid to admit they liked what they liked. It was the first time I felt like I fit in, and it was there that I met Ryan, a guy with big ideas and even bigger ambitions. We started an IT support business together, working day and night to build something from nothing. Years later, we sold it to a major corporation, and I walked away with a multi-million-dollar deal in cash and stock options. Today, I work as a chief technology officer for a startup. I own a house in a great neighborhood, though you wouldn't know it from looking at it. Everything inside is secondhand. My car is 15 years old. I don't show off and I don't flaunt my success. As far as my parents knew, I was still that failure working at a game store that had closed down 7 years ago. And honestly, I preferred it that way, until Adam decided to investigate me. A few weeks ago, Adam did something I never saw coming. He hired a private investigator to dig into my life. I can only assume he thought he'd uncover proof that I was broke, struggling, or somehow still the failure he had always believed me to be. Maybe he wanted to stage some sort of intervention to help me in that condescending way he always did. But that's not what he found. Instead, he discovered my wealth, my success, my career. The irony? I work in cybersecurity. The moment I got notifications about unauthorized attempts to access my credit report, I traced the source back to the investigator. It didn't take long to connect the dots. I was furious, so I did what any cybersecurity expert would do. I hired the same investigator to look into Adam's finances. And what I found? A disaster. 3 mortgage loans he couldn't afford, unpaid IRS debts, a history of DUIs, domestic disturbances, and financial mismanagement. A child protective services file related to a drunken altercation. Adam, the golden child, was drowning in debt, and my parents had no idea. I decided to wait. I wanted to see how this would all unfold, and then came Sunday dinner. That night, the atmosphere at the dinner table was different. My parents weren't ignoring me. In fact, they were almost too nice. My mother kept refilling my plate. My father actually asked about my job. Adam was unusually quiet. And then it happened. Adam, desperate to regain his usual role, started boasting about his latest huge sales commission. I leaned back and said, "That's great, Adam. I imagine that'll help with the IRS payments." Silence. Adam turned pale. My parents froze. My mother stammered, "IRS payments?" I shrugged, playing innocent. "Oh, didn't Adam tell you? He's been behind on taxes for a while now, not to mention the 3 mortgages but I'm sure he has it under control." The room imploded. Adam exploded, shouting at me. "You should have never been born." My parents desperately tried to calm him down. For the first time, they saw him crack, and for the first time, I wasn't the failure anymore. That night, I drove home in silence, processing everything. My parents had never respected me, but the moment they found out I had money, they suddenly wanted to treat me like their golden child. It wasn't love. It was greed. I knew what was coming. They'd start asking for help, for loans, for financial favors, and I wasn't going to give it to them. With the help of my therapist, I started setting boundaries. I cut back on family dinners. I focused on my own life. And then I met Ava. She was everything I needed, kind, understanding, and strong. She helped me navigate the mess my family had left behind. Today, I still see my parents occasionally, but on my terms. I spent years being overlooked, dismissed, and underestimated, but not anymore. I may have been born the family failure, but I built myself into something they could never ignore. What do you think? Should I have exposed Adam, or should I have let karma handle it? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.